Chapter 9. Hooray for Friendship. Jake gave a happy bark and slobbered all over Polly with joy, and together they had a bit of a romp on the rocks, with tickling and rolling around and woofing and such like. "You know each other?" asked Alan Taylor.
"Are you kidding?" said Polly. "Me and Jake's, we're friends of old."
"How extraordinary," said Alan Taylor. "He followed me all the way here, almost as if he wanted to help."
"Yeah," said Polly, stroking Jake's tongue, "'cause he's the cleverest hero dog ever, and he knew he was in troubles."
Actually, Jake had just been wandering along looking for insects to eat, but never mind. The important thing was that he was there. Alan Taylor hopped onto his great broad head, and Polly hopped onto his massive whopper back.
"Rinky-dink-dink," she cried, and with that, the magnificent canine flopped into the sea and started up his Doggy Paddler 2000s, otherwise known as his legs.
Alan Taylor tugged at Jake's ears to steer him, and Polly was in charge of fuel, which meant cramming dog biscuits into his mouth. She'd been carrying around dozens of them in her skirt pocket all summer, in case Jake showed up. To be honest, it was a relief to finally get rid of them. Meanwhile, back on the boat, the robbers were just lazing around doing nothing much. They weren't even rowing, they were just letting the boat drift off to France of its own accord. Billy William was impressing Monsieur Bellybutton by eating a £50 note, and Mr. Gum was looking for dolphins to scowl at. "Oh," he said, spying a great big one on the starboard side. "Now for some quality scowling." But as it came closer, Mr. Gum saw that it wasn't a dolphin after all. It was Jake, carrying his cargo of heroes. And the next moment the glorious beast erupted from the waters like a furry referee and landed in the boat with an enormous wet crash. His whopper paws went scrambling about all over the place and got Billy William right in the never-you-minds. "Oof!" yipped Billy, and that was him out of the action. "Meddlers!" screamed Mr. Gum, grabbing the biscuit tin and reaching for a bashing stick. But Alan Taylor jumped at him in a heroic frenzy, his Superman cape streaming out behind him. He landed on the biscuit tin and sunk his teeth into Mr. Gum's right hand. "Shabber me whiskers!" wailed Mr. Gum. "That hurts like a rascal." He waved his hand about, trying to dislodge Alan Taylor, but when it came down to it, he was just a lame-o coward, and he had to let go. "Whimper!" he remarked, retreating to the end of the boat, but there was no place to run, and he couldn't swim, and why? Because he couldn't be bothered. Working fast, Polly and Alan Taylor tied up Mr. Gum and Billy William. Then Polly turned to their evil-smelling accomplice.
"You are a bad one, all right," she said, looking Monsieur Bellybutton up and down. "But maybe there's hopes for you yet. Get in this thing," she commanded, pointing to a medieval catapult that stood in one corner of the boat. Monsieur Bellybutton took one look at Jake's big teeth and climbed inside, sobbing in terror. "Stand back,"
said Polly, and splang! Monsieur Bellybutton shot out of the catapult and over the waves. "No!" he screamed in slow motion, which is the French for "No!" Because for the first time in his grubilant life, Monsieur Bellybutton was about to have a bath. Le splash. In he went. The sea began to boil up all around him as layer after layer of dirt finally met its arch-enemy, water. Monsieur Bellybutton coughed and choked and hiccuped, but to no avail. The dirt was losing, and at long last, after all those years, the world was free of his atrocious fragrance. A vast wave full of laughing starfish and seahorses swept him up and carried him all the way back to Paris, and never did he hassle anybody again, but instead he became the loveliest grandfather you could imagine, and he knew stories and songs about happy, happy mice. But never mind that now, because Polly and Alan Taylor were rowing back to land with the defeated robbers mumbling and moaning at their feet. As they approached the shore, they saw an excited figure hobbling over the rocks and shouting, "The truth is a lemon meringue! The 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 truth is a lemon meringue!" "Do you think that's Friday?" asked Alan Taylor.
"I wouldn't be surprised,"
said Polly, who knew her friend well. And indeed, it was he. As soon as the boat reached land, the heroes all ran up to give him friendship medals, which means hugs. "Careful," cautioned Friday as they hugged away. "I'm still in pain." And seeing Friday's brave legs all covered in blisters, Polly suddenly fell silent to remember what he'd been through. Stinging nettles. Big ones. and so the heroes made their way back up Hangman's Leap with Mr. Gum and Billy William tied firmly to Jake's furry back. When finally they reached the top of the cliff, Alan Taylor cleared his throat to make a speech, and also to get rid of a whelk that had got in there. "Polly," he began, "if it weren't for you, I never would have discovered the true meaning of friendship."
"Eh?"
said Polly in surprise. "It's true," said Alan Taylor, holding up a small shiny object for all to see. "For you gave me this 50-pence piece, though it was all the money you had in the world, and as I lay in bed feeling sorry for myself, I realized it is friendship that is important in life, not money." He handed Polly back her coin and then continued, "Now," he speeched, "time to do something I should have done a long time ago. This," he said, holding up the biscuit tin, "this has brought me only misery, and it stopped me from seeing what true friends are and things like that." And before anyone could stop him, he took the lid off the tin and flung its contents into the wind. Everyone watched in awe as the money tumbled out and went flying over the ocean like expensive seagulls. All those millions. It seemed to take forever, but eventually Alan Taylor was left with an empty biscuit tin, and something else. For a moment Polly couldn't think what it was, but then she understood.
"Why,"
she thought,
"I never once seen him smiling before, nor a proper smile from the heart."
For a great burden seemed to have fallen from Alan Taylor's shoulders. As the sun came out, he grinned from ear to ear, and he looked to Polly like the richest man alive.